All right, Rick. So we're back at it again here, and this time we're coming out of a city council in San Jose.
The belly of the beast.
Yeah, well, at least one of the bellies of one of the beasts. Basically, what they just unanimously voted on was a tax for gun owners to essentially pay for the harm that gun violence is creating in San Jose. Now, I mean, that idea, I guess, isn't the hardest idea to wrap your head around, although we could think of numerous things that do harm to our community, and we don't charge people taxes for any of them, especially when you're talking about law-abiding citizens paying a tax for people who violate the law. But I think one of the important things coming out of this, which, by the way, I mean, what they voted on in San Jose was to continue and conduct research. And right now, they are estimating $442 million annually in gun violence harm to the San Jose community. This is coming from...
Wait, how much was that again?
$442 million.
Okay, we're going to talk about that because I seriously doubt that. But
I think we should. Jacob,
but what's it based on? Like, where does this number come from?
Well, they tell us, Jacob, if you can pull up this article, this is from the San Jose City Council. We've got it highlighted here. What they're deriving this from is a study that the Pacific Institute on Research and Evaluation has done. And as you can see, they've estimated $442 million annually right there in their study. Now, if you just look down a little bit further, this is the part that's really troubling to me. And we're going to call them PIRE. But it says here, PIRE is an independent nonprofit organization currently conducting the public cost of gun harm study through private and philanthropic funding. Now,
and wait a second. I want to just stop the train. Right
okay.
Here.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Private funding. You know, I'm so sick and tired of these anti-Second Amendment groups playing this game, Kevin, because, and I'm sick and tired of some of our own people, you know, commenting to us and going, hey, I think you're overdoing the boogeyman by the name of Michael J. Bloomberg, but I'm going to prove right here, right now with your help.
Sure.
That, yeah. So PIRE says right here in that third paragraph that's on your screens, folks, that, hey, you know, it's private. So, Jacob, if you could take us to our next screen that is talking about who is backing this study with PIRE. Oh, so there's PIRE. And then when Jacob goes down to the economic cost of gun violence, and he hits that little green button so you can follow along at home and do this with us, it takes us to, wait for it, Everytown USA, which is a Michael J. Bloomberg organization. He has been proud. When he was running for president, he clothed himself in that banner. He cannot escape that banner. So really, the city of San Jose is doing Michael J. Bloomberg's bidding against law-abiding gun owners.
Yeah, and the thing is, this isn't hard to derive. You know, we just did a couple of quick Google searches to understand that when they say in a San Jose City Council meeting that this is privately funded by a philanthropist, that PIRE is connected to Everytown, which is vehemently an anti-Second Amendment group. And so how fair is this? How much justice does this actually bring? You bring in a completely biased organization to create a study where they have already made their conclusion. All that they are attempting to do is find supporting data to point other people to that same conclusion. This is not how studies are supposed to be done, and it's actually it's very untruthful to the public.
Yeah, I think all of you out there have to understand, too, that what is going on is they're making this number. So, you know, in the first screen, what they said was $442 million.
Annually.
And yeah, annually is what gun violence. So if that was true, I think you would agree with me that San Jose would be worse than Chicago when it came to gun violence, because $442 million is a lot of money. And to give you an idea how much money that they're claiming in this, which I have a hard time with, just quoting here from the internet, San Jose Spotlight, which is their big newspaper in San Jose, says on June 14th of 2021, that's this year, just a couple weeks ago, that the San Jose Police Department will see a 1.6% increase in its budget for 2021 from $455 million to $462 million. San Jose's total proposed operating budget, Kevin, for the city is $4.5 billion, which is a 5% decrease from the previous year. So there's two things I can derive from that. Number one, Everytown, aka Bloomberg, through his PIRE study that he sent to the city council, is claiming that the entire basic city budget for law enforcement, like 98.5% or something like that, is gun violence, which means they don't have drunk drivers, they don't have car accidents, they don't have. This is ridiculous. Like, there is no way that number is real. And I want to break it down to show people how unreal that number is.
Well, yeah, his ultimate effort is to price gun owners out of the industry, right? And that essentially is what this does. I mean, this basically creates reparations for firearm owners specifically, which, you know, if you want to categorize somebody, I thought we weren't allowed to categorize people like that when it came to the law or city ordinances anymore. But apparently that's okay for gun owners. But I think where this is actually coming from is the context. I mean, how is it that Everytown is actually defining what dollar amount you're going to put on a gun violence victim? Jacob, you actually have it right here. If you can bring up the Everytown website again. Now, this is a national number you'll see, but here in the second paragraph, it says that they estimate $280 billion represents the lifetime cost associated with gun violence. So what does that actually mean? That means that they are taking immediate costs starting at the time of incident. They're taking subsequent costs such as treatment, long-term physical and mental health care, foregone earnings, criminal justice costs, and costs estimated of quality of life lost over a victim's lifespan. I mean, what does that mean?
Well, and if you look a little bit down below when they say on an average day, and we'll just go with the first one, as a person that used to work on an ambulance, they say average, American taxpayers pay a daily average of $34.8 million for medical care, first responders, ambulance, police, criminal justice services related to gun violence. Okay, so let's just stop for a second. So if we're going to level this out, the first thing I would point out, and this is from a John Hopkins study that was done in the last year, that number one, the number 3 thing in California that leads to death, it's not gun violence. You know what it is?
Oh.
It's medical malpractice. Medical errors cost more lives than gun violence. But do we see Michael J. Bloomberg, who's concerned about American lives? That's what he preaches. That's what he preached in his presidential campaign. Do you see him going out there saying, this is what medical malpractice, which is literally close to $1 trillion of American money, out there with these same things through? Wait, no.
Of course
you don't see that. You know why? Because a lot of those doctors and a lot of his companies are influenced by that. So he doesn't go after that. Loss of life is one thing, but, there is no way you can put that together. This is people just like trying to spread out a lie and put it out there. But ambulance costs, are no way making that up. Police are already on the streets doing it. They do not parse everything out. So there's no way they got numbers to show exactly how much police time. The criminal justice system is doing stuff this is just trying to lump to create hysteria, to create a movement, to go after law-abiding citizens. And at the end of the day, these are the same clowns that are saying, let's release these people early because they might get a cold in prison.
Well, yeah, but they're doing it in a very sly way. I mean, if you want to talk about an immediate cost, if I take a ball and I throw it through a window, it's very easy to discern the cost of the window.
I don't think so, because if you use the Bloomberg method, Kevin, the people that make the baseball, there's a cost for them making that baseball. There's a cost for the people in foreign countries that grew the stuff that made the baseball. There's the cost of the cattle rancher that made the leather for the baseball. There's the cost of the major league, people. Yeah. I mean, all those costs. Oh, damn, that baseball is now like a $400 baseball that for some reason I can buy at Dick's Sporting Goods for like $15.
But on top of that, you conflate it with this broad, ambiguous term called quality of life. And this is sort of the problem. You lump 3 things that seem tangible with something that is intangible. I mean, who's going to make that decision about the dollar amount that somebody's quality of life is worth?
Well, and you can go back to what happened, unfortunately, on September 11th when the towers fell. but I remember reading articles about some of the people who were servers that worked in that beautiful restaurant at the top of the building. And, one family claimed that the life of their loved one that was lost tragically on that day, and we all still mourn those people. I mean, this person, because they were thinking about going to medical school, was worth this much money. This person, because that conversation never happened, was this much money. You get the bean counters in a room, and it's really weird. Like, life has variable values, and I don't want to get into that debate, but my point is, because of that, there is no way you can put a number that's even remotely accurate in this stuff, which causes me to question every number that they're throwing out there.
Right, but that's how they come to this illogical conclusion of $440 million when that just seems
1/9 of the annual budget of San Jose.
Yeah.
And wait, did that happen overnight? No. So what you're saying is the city council has been asleep at the wheel for decades, while 1/9 of their budget was being exasperated on one type of violence. And I want to go back to that, because if the only thing the law enforcement agency in San Jose is dealing with is gun violence, the only thing the courts are dealing with is gun violence, the only thing the hospital, how did it get so bad? How come we haven't heard about this? I mean, this is made up.
Well, the proof, I guess, is going to end up being in the pudding, but I mean, we have to be there to kind of dissolve these bad arguments. So, I mean, I'm going to try to get as many people to these meetings as possible to let them know just how faulty these actually are. Although I don't really understand, how do we get a less biased study into the city council meeting?
You just go to somebody like Bloomberg and you pay for a BS study to be made up and put a title on it.
But what else does this open us up to? How many people are going to start bringing lawsuits to the city of San Jose saying that they have one way or another been affected by gun violence?
Well, it's not going to be limited to San Jose. I can guarantee you Bloomberg and his every town cronies are going to take this to every city they can think of. And if American people, especially here in California, don't start standing up and saying, there is no way this is true. Because you know what this is like to me, folks? I'm going to tell you exactly what this is like. I had 3 kids that grew up in our household, great kids, like every father, you love your children. But what you got to remember is when your child might have earned their first $25 in their very first job, whether it was, throwing newspapers, helping a neighbor out, whatever it is. And when they start talking about how they're going to spend it, you had to tell them, you can't do all those things because that's like $400 worth of expenses on $25. Like, you can only spend it once. That's what these studies are like to me. They throw these numbers out for you and I to look at, but they don't have that much money. And that's one of my points in this. $442 million annually for San Jose. They have a lot of other things. They have infrastructure. They have, issues with businesses, parks departments. The list goes on. It is not cheap to run a city. Obviously, when they're talking this $4.5 billion, according to their own budget, to say that 1/9 of it is on one subject matter, that's patently false. And it's easy to disprove. And if they're going to stand up and lie like this to their people, all of you should be concerned. What else are they lying about? Because just like your kids, usually your kid, as you know, Kevin, doesn't tell you just one lie. There's a series of lies to cover up that one lie.
Well, and that series of lies is generally created to cover up a larger motive.
Correct.
And I just can't forget that the motive here is to phase out firearm owners in this state.
And to criminalize those of us that want to exercise our Second Amendment right to be able to protect ourselves or put food on the table, or for any of you just to have the fun of going to a range and going target shooting. Why are we becoming the criminal? And I would argue it's because we aren't standing together as one up to this villainy.